Welcome everyone to the Solo to Entrepreneur Show. You are with me, the host Lorraine Chai, on today's episode, where we help solo entrepreneurs into their journey to becoming thriving entrepreneurs. I'm a business strategist coach where I help solo entrepreneurs through the journey in terms of finding clarity, business structure, and business success. Today, we're talking about the whole point of protecting yourself personally and in your business space. And we have an expert here with us today, Amanda Olic. So welcome, Amanda.
Thank you so much for having me, Lorraine. My pleasure.
Now, when I met Amanda, like she's one of the most interesting lawyers out there. To be honest, I get quite bored with lawyers out there, but when Amanda started speaking, I was like, oh my gosh, I got to know this woman. Now, Amanda, can you tell us a little bit more of your background in terms of how you fell into the world of law?
Okay, so not gonna lie, I was supposed to be a hairdresser, and really got pushed into, taking the next step into doing something, I guess, academic. And I wanted to help people, always a really good conversationalist, really great at, defending my position, and took on a law degree. I actually studied at Newcastle University many years ago and coupled that with a marketing degree. So those two hand in hand, I've been able to then build my business in law. So I think going back, would I change anything? Probably not. And would I be a hairdresser now? I'd probably say that I'll leave that to the experts because I wasn't great as it as I thought.
Fair enough, fair enough. So, in terms of law, right? Different countries, different states, they all have different laws. So we're talking about in general, but it's always good to kind of check with your local lawyers just to make sure that you're covering your backside. Now, in terms of like with growing a business, right? When I started growing, I never considered having any legal assistance. Fair enough, I had lawyers as friends, and occasionally I would ask their advice, but never actually having someone on board. What is your take on that for, let's say, solo entrepreneurs or new entrepreneurs in the business?
I would have to say that getting early advice is definitely your number one priority as a small business owner. I think so many take it for granted. I help so many small business owners, get those foundations right. So whether it be drafting their contracts or just giving them some advice about how to structure their entity legally, putting them in contact with people who can give them tax advice and things like that, which can really help them avoid bigger problems later on. So I have had business owners come to me later and say, I wish I spoke to you earlier. One of the main issues has often been around trademarking and intellectual property.
Mm.
People tend to sort of jump straight in and register a business name, not checking if someone else has a trademark. And then they've had to later on totally change their business name. They've lost clients or, customers because of the change in name that they've had to do because they're in breach of someone else's intellectual property. It's a huge loss for their business. Uh, it could have been avoided if they came to me and got some advice, and I would have been able to do those searches for them. So that's, sort of tend to where I find a lot of business owners not realizing that they really could benefit from having that advice early on.
Absolutely. So I've gone down that track. So I've made all those mistakes that I've had to, and now I completely encourage people to actually go and see a lawyer for, a business lawyer, not just any lawyer, a business lawyer who actually knows their stuff. Because like I went down a road where I had a partnership with someone who went into liquidation. So there goes my payment. I'm not going to get the money back, right? I've gone down the road where, an ex-partner decided to trademark my business because he wanted to get back at me. And there was this whole system of, because I'm also a book publishing company, where I've had to, pause the printing because my brand was on the book before he got a hold of that, and I had to go through a lot of contracts to protect my business and myself. But I've had to rewrite that contract so many times because I didn't go down the right channels. I was more of asking advice rather than take a look at this and tell me what to do.
And I think that's another really good point, is that you're constantly always having to relook at how you do things. So, rewriting your contract or putting things on hold and getting advice. I think that's sort of where we tend to sort of see our clients grow. And, the way that we approach things here at Logix is offering subscriptions for people so that they can feel like they've got access to me. You know, they've actually got my personal number. If you have something that's at 7 p.m. at night, call me, I'll help you. And just feeling like they're looked after so that they do feel, you know, they've got the advice and can deal with it there and then. It's so important. And there's no one contract that you will have forever. New issues come up, you know, the business will change. And I feel, you know, it's great to then have that ability to be able to get advice and then update your contract so you're protected.
Absolutely. Law changes as well anyway, so we got to be up to date in terms of what's happening as well. Now, lawyers, nobody loves lawyers. What's your
Except
take on that? Like,
I
how do you
like
approach that?
look, I'm not gonna lie, we probably do have, you know, this stigma about us. But I like to think that I'm different. I'm not your ordinary lawyer. I definitely would say that I am approachable. I don't think that all lawyers are, you know, the same. I definitely think that there are ones that are better at things than others. And I think when you get a lawyer that just gets it and understands business and is approachable and happy to talk to you, that is someone that you definitely want in your business. So um, you know, so I would definitely say that, you know, I don't see myself as someone who is not approachable. I wouldn't put me into the category of those lawyers that you refer to. So
No, so absolutely, like you're an absolute person that's really approachable, but like it's just the title, right? The word
yeah,
lawyer,
I
and
think
then
they're
people freak
scary.
out. Yeah.
I think it's because it's such a scary industry. And obviously, there's nothing more serious than the law. It is really scary. And what I like to do is be able to make it understandable and less scary for everybody.
Yeah.
I think
So
around the
with So
it
I
can work.
remember back in the day when I first started, I know lawyers would be great, but I think this would be a common thing or a common thought where when people start involving business lawyers, the first thing that pops up to mind is, oh my gosh, it's going to be expensive, or it's going to be scary. I think the first thing would be expensive. What would your advice be for, let's say, solopreneurs or new business owners in terms of that concept?
I think as a small business owner, you really need to not look at, obviously consider the cost, but it is not the be all end all, because if you fail to get that advice early on, the cost to you later for not having got that advice is going to be tenfold. And that's when I'll say, I told you so. But at that point, you're then spending so much more trying to resolve a dispute, and disputes and litigation is so much more expensive than just getting that advice early on. What we tend to do is be affordable where we can. We offer fixed rates. We have different lawyers in our team who can then help in terms of giving advice. We might have a senior, or we might have someone who is a little bit less senior giving advice, and they have different rates. So we do try and accommodate to better suit, you know, each individual business owner. But I definitely say don't skimp on the advice early on.
But it's not just all about just going to one lawyer though. It's asking, comparing, right? Comparing between lawyers and seeing if that lawyer
You
actually,
definitely can.
right, to see if that lawyer
Yeah.
actually understands your needs rather than, okay, I'm just going to go to that one and I'm going to stick with that one.
And one thing I've also found with clients is that they may not necessarily be comparing apples with apples. So they might say, oh, well, this guy is way cheaper, which is fine, but you may not be getting the service that you would get with us. So even though we're giving you advice around structuring, we might also flag some other issues with you, so that as we're discussing, we would give you some additional advice in that initial call, for example. So you've just got to be careful with, you know, what you're paying for, and making sure, I think, that there's trust. I think trust is massive with any clients. You really want to make sure that you feel that they do trust you, and you want to feel like you trust your lawyer. So
But it's not always all about price though. Like when I first started, I remember buying all the cheapest lighting, the cheapest microphone comparatively to the better quality ones, and they end up breaking quicker, which means you end up spending more. And I think it's the same concept. Like, would you rather pay for a cheap, let's say a fresh grad who may not understand things properly, or would you like to pay for experience where someone knows their way
and I think
around
that's
things?
a really valid point, because isn't there that saying, you pay peanuts, you get monkeys? But so say, for example, drafting a contract. You can draft a contract, but if you've never seen a dispute, you will never be able to anticipate with that experience what could go wrong and implement that in an initial contract or giving initial advice. I think like experience is the most valuable thing. So having that knowledge and being able to rely on someone who's been there, done that, why wouldn't you want that in your business?
Absolutely. Now, you found this whole loophole with a white space in the industry. Tell us more about that.
With what space?
You found this white space in the industry between the technology and law.
Yes, yes, sorry. So it was after COVID, um, and we were doing everything online, and this was like just the new way of doing business. So I got to a point where I really wanted to make a change. I wanted to be the driver in the industry towards doing things just smarter. And so what we had found is that everybody was then wanting to meet online. We were doing things and automating processes. And there was a new way of doing law. AI is now, coming into play. And, although I'm a little bit skeptical, but this is the future. And I really want to be able to drive law to be accessible, affordable, and how else do you do that other than by using technology and automating processes? So there is obviously still the traditional side where we can't avoid some of the research and some of the things that do take time, but where we can, we really try to innovate and work smarter.
So, what do you cover in this whole sector, this new sector of technology and law? Like, how can you help someone?
So what we tend to do is, making sure that we're offering these online meetings
Mhm.
with for business owners who are time poor. We still do face to face. I mean, if you offer me coffee, I'm there. But what we tend to find is,
So you're that cheap. Just no, I'm joking.
or wine, one of the two. What we tend to find is people want the ability to quickly do something. So whether it be sending them a checklist that they can then automatically just fill in rather than meet and, spend their time discussing something, they might want to do something through a checklist or something like that. We tend to sort of allow them the ability to make it their own by giving them some of the use of our processes and systems. But just doing things electronically has been really the way forward for us.
Absolutely. Like in Malaysia, I do have a couple of contracts there where they're still old school. They still post a contract where I have to sign and post it back. I'm like, can I just fax it over? Well,
That's cute.
people don't use fax anymore. So can I just scan it and send it over instead of posting it back?
I mean, these young generations won't even know what mail is, right? So
I
we're
know.
we're now that generation.
Yeah,
I do
and talking
love
about
getting mail.
generation, right? Yeah, talking about generation, we know that the simplicity of things is how we look at it, and especially with business owners, like we want things where just tell me what to do and I'll do it. Like don't tell me all these big words. I have no idea what these big word means. Even with the education system, because my background is also in education, where we learn psychology and we have all these big words. I'm like, okay, but I don't think people I interact with or my students will understand those big words. But it's more of simplifying the language to the current century, right? The current era of these people that we're interacting with. And that's what I like about you because like you found that people prefer the simplicity and using simple language rather than having a client staring at you blankly going, yeah, okay, yeah, I understand, but they don't, right?
Absolutely. I think it's so important. You want to feel like you do understand what you're dealing with when it comes to law. Like it's already so complex. Why make it even more complicated? And we tend to write in simple, plain language. A lot of my email communication is exactly how I speak. So you feel like you're getting the same tone, whether it be by email or by written correspondence from us. I mean, if you want me to send a formal letter, we can do that too. I think it's all about tailoring the experience to the client and making sure that they feel like they've really got this. So,
So I don't have to Google any words that comes through the email from you.
you know what? Let's hope not. But even if there is a word that we might refer to, I'll then go and explain it. So this is what it means, just so you know. I think it just really helps simplify everything.
Yeah. All right. So can you or can anyone do legal documents themselves? Is always a question that I'm asked.
Oh, I think this is where I
You're
have to say
cringing.
no. Okay, so within reason, I would say this. So, what we tend to offer is templates for you to use in your business. In saying that, we also offer a guide of how to complete that template. Now, you need to be really wary about using things like that or doing them yourself. One, you really want to make sure that your template is suitable and from a reputable provider. You also want to make sure that you've read it and understand it and it actually applies, because even though you think the title might apply, there might be clauses that don't necessarily apply. That's where I do recommend getting a lawyer involved. So I would probably say be wary and leaning towards no, or if you do want to, really make sure that you've carefully considered what's in the document and making sure that you do understand before you implement it. And even if you do take that shortcut, you then have to be ready for the risk, right? So there's nothing that's going to bulletproof you in that sense. You then really need to be ready to take on the risk. So if you're preparing a contract for a $2 million deal using a template, I'd say please don't. But if you're doing it for a $500 service contract, that's probably a reasonable risk for a business owner to take. So you really need to sort of be ready to take risks in your business and weigh up whether it is a big risk or a small risk and what your risk appetite is.
Okay, so let's say there's someone that wants to start a business or has bought over a business now, and they're looking for a lawyer. They're like, okay, we need a business lawyer, but they don't know how to look for one. So, what would you advise, like criterias or kind of what kind of questions should they ask before they start looking for the right person?
So first of all, I would say just call it logics. But
Yes.
you really want to make sure that you have a commercial lawyer, someone who understands aspects of business in general, someone who has had a lot of experience in dealing with setting businesses up, dealing with disputes as well. So if you can get someone who has seen both sides, they then can implement, the dispute side within drafting of a contract.
So,
That
would
sort of
they look at reviews? Would they look at the years the company is, or?
Absolutely. Yeah. So I, also think apart from experience, you're wanting to also making sure that, you've checked that they actually have a lawyer license and they're not just pretending to be a lawyer, making sure that they've, got those positive reviews. Like Google is, although it's great, I don't know if it is accurate. You get a lot of fake Google reviews. I think word of mouth is obviously a really good way to check who you're dealing with. A lot of our business tends to come from word of mouth. So I would say, go with someone that you can trust. So with the experience, and find someone that, through word of mouth is always a really great way to find to help you.
Absolutely. And I also would recommend like to actually get in touch with lawyers and just to suss your energy out because sometimes on paper and in person is completely different and you can kind of tell, I mean, I can tell anyway, who a person is when you meet them, when you see them, when you interact with them rather than on paper.
And when you spend so much time talking to a lawyer, right, you really want to make sure you're comfortable with them. So I think that's a really valid point. You want to be able to deal with who you're dealing with. Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. What kind of advice would you give solo entrepreneurs out there in the whole space of legal? Because I know by the time people are listening to this, they're like, scratching their heads and getting stressed out with the whole concept of law.
I think have a lawyer in your corner, have someone that is your go-to. Don't skimp out on legal advice early on. And don't be afraid to reach out for help. I think one of the things as a business owner is, you think I've got this, but we all can't do everything and we're all not amazing at everything. I think leave it to the experts and get the advice.
Absolutely. Now, would you, I know some lawyers offer this, but do you offer like, let's say a free 15-minute consultation just for the clients to kind of suss you out and you seeing if they're the right fit?
Absolutely. So we do offer a free 15-minute consult, whether it be by telephone or online. During that time, we sort of give some information about what we would provide and what sort of things we would talk about moving forward in setting up a new business. And it's an opportunity for them to gauge what our vibe is like and whether they think that they would gel. And we would also give an indication of how we would charge and our fees. So that way, then you kind of get a really good overview as to what you're getting moving forward.
Mm. That's good. That's good. So I will put the your links and your website and your contact details on the description. So if anyone is interested, by all means get in touch with Amanda. But like Amanda's based in Sydney, Australia. Just mind you, for those of you out there that are tuning in from whichever part of the world. But it's always good to see how people, how lawyers actually see that whole concept of law, just to protect yourself. Because trust me, I've gone through all this nonsense that shouldn't be happening. But you've always going to come across challenges in your businesses where you have difficult people that you're working with.
Thank you so much, Lorraine. It's been a pleasure.
Absolutely. Well, thanks, Amanda, for joining me today. It's been an absolute delight to have you. And it's very different to have a lawyer where they don't have textbooks behind them. It's it's a very different view. So it's all great.
That's the beauty of being electronic. We can work anywhere in the world.
That's right. All right, guys. So check Amanda out. She is an approachable lawyer, not the scary type. And yeah, let's help get your business protected. But until next time, if you do like this episode, please do like, subscribe, share this post, and leave some comments to see what your thoughts on in regards to the whole concept of law. But until next time, I'll see you on the next episode.